Good evening. A huge boost for Lakeland College and the city of Lloydminster. The federal government is investing close to $1 million in heavy oil equipment and simulators. Kim Smith was at this morning's announcement and has the details.
Our government, through my department, Western Economic Diversification, has invested over $948,000 towards the purchase of specialized simulators. Yes.
Lakeland students and city officials were on hand for the minister's announcement. The investment is meant to address the shortage of skilled workers. According to the Petroleum Human Resources Council of Canada, the oil and gas industry will need to hire a minimum of 9,500 new workers in the next 2 years.
2015 was way far away, but when you're in 2013, it's not anymore. The demand is there. We hear a lot about it as federal government.
The $948,000 investment will allow Lakeland College to acquire specialized simulators and equipment for its heavy oil programs.
State-of-the-art equipment that we otherwise would not be able to obtain. And this is going to be so beneficial in training students.
Mayor Jeff Mulligan anticipates that the new training facility will encourage more people to make Lloydminster their home.
Anytime you can build infrastructure, you've got a better chance of keeping and maintaining people that come to the region.
Charlesworth says the investment will make the border city the center for heavy oil training in Canada.
There's so many positions that are needed, and there's not that many people that have the training, and we'll be able to offer that kind of training to a very large extent.
He hopes to have the new building and equipment ready for students in the fall of 2014. Kim Smith, Newcap News.
With the Alberta government working with the deficit budget for 2013, cuts had to be made. And as Clayton Brown explains, some Alberta pharmacists are concerned the latest pharmaceutical cutbacks could put them out of business.
Chris Latosky graduated as a pharmacist 3 years ago, expecting to have a long career. But after the most recent budget cutbacks, he says his future is uncertain.
The generic rebates were the biggest revenue stream that we see in pharmacy, and the government is basically, with this latest round of cuts, is cutting it down to nothing.
This isn't the first setbacks the industry has experienced. In fact, Latosky says it's been a steady stream of cuts that have resulted in the situation they're facing now.
There had been 3 rounds of cuts starting in 2010 and continuing 2012, and again this year they had announced some before this latest round in the budget last week. So that has us concerned.
Industry professionals say by virtually axing the rebates, it cuts over $200 million in revenue from pharmacies. And they say it will have a major impact on patients.
We're definitely concerned for Albertans as well and what they're going to be missing due to these cuts. Free services that we haven't charged for, over-the-counter consultations, contacting your doctor for refills. We either have to cut them or we have to start charging.
Latosky says if nothing changes, many rural pharmacies may be forced to close their doors. In Elk Point, Clayton Brown, Newcap News.
Living with diabetes can often be difficult and costly. According to the Canadian Diabetes Association, more than 9 million Canadians live with the disease. The Alberta government has recently announced funding for a new insulin pump program. Anna Stanislaw brings us the details in this week's Healthy Living.
There's different inserters, but this particular one is a quick set, and you just push that.
Connie Browse, a registered nurse, has been living with type 1 diabetes for 30 years. She has been using needles to inject herself with insulin in the early stages of her diagnosis, but has made the move to using the insulin pump.
It has had a very positive impact on my life. It's certainly allows for a lot more flexibility. And I think for myself, I've been able to achieve a lot better control.
Insulin pumps are small machines that give you a steady infusion of insulin throughout a 24-hour period. A big difference between using needles and injecting 5 times a day. But it can also cost as much as $7,000, which in some cases is too costly for those living with diabetes.
That is not the only cost involved with pump therapy. It's the monthly cost of operating your pump. You need infusion sets, increased blood sugar testing, the insulin itself, that on average you're looking at somewhere between $230 to $275, $300 a month.
But now Alberta will be the first province in Canada to fund an insulin pump program with no age restrictions, although it will also be the last to have a pump program in place. In Saskatchewan, those under 25 with type 1 diabetes can qualify for their insulin pump program.
Type 1 diabetes is where a person is unable to make their own insulin or sufficient insulin anymore and requires insulin injection. To get the best out of pump therapy, a person usually has to do more than they did before, but the potential benefit and what we can achieve in diabetes control is tremendous with a pump when it's used appropriately.
I just think that the pumps have been great for a lot of people, and certainly it just allows you a lot more options and a lot more flexibility. And they're a great tool.
The Alberta government hasn't released any criteria as of yet, but the Canadian Diabetes Association estimates 6,000 people will be eligible for the program. Anna Stanislaw, Newcap News.